Hi, we're going to build a simulation model today. The situation is like this. Here is a tire store who has 40 tires available for the sales in the next 10 days. What is special in this example is the demand is random and we'll have 200 days of demand data for us to simulate the demand. In the simulation model we're going to build, there's only one source of uncertainty we need to simulate. That is the demand. In order to simulate the demand, we need to know its distribution. So how do we go about that? Well, we have data, so we can use the data to estimate distribution of demand. And that's the first thing we're going to do now. If you take a look at the data over here, you'll find that the daily demand is somewhere between 0 and 5. So what we're going to do now is to write out what are the possible outcomes for the demand. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we can count. Let's count how many days out of those 200 samples that we have 0 demand, 1 demand, 2 demand, so on and so forth, all the way to 5 demand. So let's call it frequency. Okay, and how do we do that? Well, there are two ways. The first method is to use a function called frequency. Here's how you use it. First, select all these cells and then move your cursor here, typing in frequency, parenthesis. So in the first input is data array. This is the data you want Excel to count. So that will be all the demand data over here. Okay, I'm going to select the entire demand. Okay, and move it back. So that's the first input. The second input is beans array. So let's select this. Now close it. And here is the key part. You do not just hit enter here. This is what you should do now. You hold Control and Shift and then enter. And here the magic happens. You see, these are the counts of demand in the 200 days. For example, here it says it counts 10 days that has 0 demand, 20 days with 1 demand, so on and so forth. Now, let me introduce a second way. So again, I'm going to count the frequency of each possible demand outcome. Now, instead of frequency, I'm going to use another function called count if. Okay, count if. So first, you give it a range. That's again the range in which you want Excel to count from. So again, I'm going to select this entire area. Second input is the criteria. So here the criteria is the criteria to count. And here we want it to count any demand that is 0. In this case, you can simply click on this cell or type in 0. Then it will count the number of demand in the blue array that is 0. Okay, I close it. And now I'm going to put $sign over here to fix the reference to the blue array. So you see it's 10. Now I'm going to drag down the cells and you see the same result. So you can use either of these two methods. Just use one of them and then this is the frequency. Now I know there are 10 days with 0 demand, 20 days with 1 demand, so on and so forth out of 200 days. So now I can use this data to infer the probability of having 0 demand, 1 demand, 2 demand, so on and so forth, all the way to 5 demand. And I can simply find out how many how many observations I have. Although I know it's 200, but if you don't know, you can actually count it from here by adding up all of the frequencies. Now, I can calculate the probability for each possible outcome, which is simply frequency divided by the number of observations. Okay, I'm going to put $sign here to fix a reference. So I can now drag it down and have the probability of each possible outcome. Now, I'm going to calculate something called cumulative probability. Okay, for the first demand outcome, it's just its own probability. For the next one, it's equal to its own probability plus this probability. For the next one, it's this plus this plus this. For this one, it's this plus this plus this plus this. Okay, so now you probably see the rhythm. So instead of doing this, we can simplify the operation in this way. It's equal to this one, and going forward, it's simply the probability of itself plus the cumulative probability of the previous outcome. Now we can drag it down. Okay, if you do it correctly, you will always find it's 1 for the last possible outcome. And why do we need this cumulative probability? Let me explain why over here. So here I draw a line with a width 1 and I cut it into 6 buckets. Each bucket represents a possible demand outcome, 0 all the way to 5. And the width of each bucket is simply its probability. And if you look at the picture over here, then demand 0 is anywhere between 0 and 0.05. Demand 1 is from 0.05 to 0.15. Demand 2 is from 0.15 to 0.35. So basically here, those numbers are the upper bound for the range for each given demand state. And it happens that those numbers are the cumulative probabilities. And with that, what we're going to do is to ask Excel to draw a number between 0 and 1. Give me a number between 0 and 1. Okay, so let's say Excel give you 0.5. And where does 0.5 belongs to in this line? Well, turns out that it's over here in the middle of this line. And this point belongs to the bucket for demand 3. And we will conclude that the simulated demand is 3 in this case. So that's how we will generate simulated demand. Again, the idea is let's have Excel to generate a number between 0 and 1, and let's see which bucket that number belongs to in this figure. And then we'll know what is the simulated demand. Okay, conceptually, that's probably not hard. The question is, how can we ask Excel to do that? Okay, to see how. Let me prepare something first. So first, I'm going to record my initial inventory, which is 40, and I'm going to record the simulated days from 1 to 10 because we're going to simulate 10 days. And then over here, I need to record the random number. I'm going to use the random number here to simulate the demand, which I'll record here. So let's put random number being 0.5 for now. In the end, I'll change it to RAND, but now let's just use 0.5 so we all will have the same result. Okay, so if the random number is 0.5, as we can see from this line, 0.5 is right in the middle of this line because the width of this line is 1. This is the line between 0 and 1 over here. So 0.5 is here, so we're supposed to get a simulated demand of 3. And how do we ask Excel to do that? Here's how. We need to create a table to convey this concept to Excel. And the table looks like this. The first column, I call it lower bound of a bucket. Okay, so these are the buckets, the 6 buckets. And second column is the corresponding demand, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is the lower bound of the bucket? Well, this is a bucket for demand 0. the lower bound is over here, which is 0. This next demand state is demand of 1. And it ranges from here to here. The lower bound of this bucket is here, 0.05. For next one, demand 2, the lower bound is 0.15. So on and so forth. Okay? You can see it from here, but by the way, if you take a close look, isn't that those numbers the same as those numbers? Okay, so that's always the case. So these numbers actually come from here. So instead of typing each of them going forward, you can simply do this. This one equal to this one, and then you can drag this down. So this is a little shortcut. Okay, you can confirm this is going to be correct. Okay, with that, now we can simulate the demand. Now we need to use the function called VLOOKUP. The first input is the random number. Second, the table array here is the table we just constructed. I'm going to put the $sign to fix a reference. The third input is the column index number. It's 2. What does that mean? Well, it means in the end we want Excel to return the number in the second column over here. Why is the second column? Because that's the demand we need. The last input is always true. If you want to know why it's true, try to Google VLOOKUP function. You can find explanation over there. Okay, so we have a simulated demand of 3, which is correct. Okay, now I'm supposed to replace this number with R, A, and D. But just to make sure you can have the same result as I do, I'm going to hand type in some random numbers over here so we can have consistent answer in the end. Okay, so these are totally arbitrary numbers. These are totally arbitrary numbers, and with those random numbers, I can use the same function to find the corresponding simulated demand. So I can just drag it down. Okay, if you do it correctly, you should find exactly the same simulated demand over here. Okay, with those demand, maybe the next thing is to find out how many tires I can actually sell. Remember, I only have 40 tires available. Having a demand doesn't mean that I will be able to fulfill that demand. So let me create a column called sales. Okay, so this column will record the number of tires I can actually sell on any given day. Another thing I like to record is so-called remaining inventory. So that's the inventory leftover at the end of a day. Okay, so how am I going to proceed? Well, first of all, I'm going to record the sales. The sales is going to be like this. If the demand is larger than whatever I'm available, then I cannot satisfy all of demand. The number of demand I can satisfy is simply my inventory quantity. Otherwise, if the demand is smaller than whatever I have, then I can fulfill all of the demand. How do we express that? It's actually quite simple, like this. Minimum of initial inventory, comma, demand. Okay, so in other words, the number of product I can sell is the smaller of whatever I have in the demand. Okay, whichever is smaller is the actual number of product I can sell. Remaining inventory of that day is going to be simply whatever I start to have minus whatever number of product I actually sell. Okay. On the second day, the same logic. The number of products sold is going to be the minimum of remaining inventory from previous day and the actual demand today. Like so. Okay. And again, remaining inventory will be simply whatever you have on the at the end of yesterday minus the number of products you sold today. Okay. And that's the formula we can use going forward for all of the 10 days. Okay. With that, now we can calculate what's the revenue for each given day. The revenue is quite simple. It's simply the number of product you sell times the retail price, which is $100. Now I can drag it down, and here you go. Finally, I can calculate the total revenue out of the 10 days, which is simply the sum of the revenue for the 10 days. Okay. So far I constructed a model, but it's not dynamic. It's static because the random number are fixed. So now I'm going to change this. Instead of those numbers, I'm going to use RAND. Okay. I'm going to use RAND throughout. Now the model becomes dynamic. You probably have different set of random numbers here, which is totally fine. And now, if you press F9, okay, you'll get a new set of random numbers, and you'll see a new set of revenue and total revenue. Okay, so this is one simulation run. And my goal is to simulate 20 runs. Okay, so I want to generate 20 simulation runs. And this is where I need data table. So let me do this. I'm going to name 1 through 20. So these are the 20 simulation runs. I want Excel to generate total revenue out of 20 simulation runs and store those total revenues over here. So how do I do that? Okay, first I'm going to do this. Over here I'm going to type equal to this cell. This is how I tell Excel, you know what, in the end I want you to run simulation and store the number in this cell for each simulation runs. Next, I'm going to select this whole area, go to data, what if analysis, data table, and now over here, column input cell, I'm going to click on any cell that doesn't do anything in the spreadsheet. For example, this one. Okay, it doesn't contain anything and no one refers to it either. Okay, click on OK, and here's the magic. I have 20 simulation runs, and those numbers are the total revenue for each corresponding simulation runs. And finally, I can find the average of those 20 runs. Just average, taking the average of those 20 simulation runs, and then I'm done.